So at this point in time, I would very much like to call the Niagara Regional Police Services Board meeting for Thursday, June 27th in session. Any declarations of conflict of interest from any board members? Not seeing none. Moving along to the minutes of the previous meeting. I need a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Member Gibson, seconded by Member DeAngela. All in favor of the minutes? Thank you. Next, we have the report from the board chair. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone in attendance this morning that the Police Services Board meetings are being live streamed and the video recordings of today's meetings will be posted to the board's YouTube channel. And again, starting this morning, a tribute to our Indigenous lands. The board wishes to acknowledge, to honor the land upon which we gather as the historic and traditional territory of First Nations people. In particular, we recognize and thank the Haudenosaunee, the I normally get this correct, Anishinaabe peoples for their stewardship of these lands over the millennia. We also wish to thank all First Nations people in Canada for their ongoing and important roles in caretaking of the land beneath our feet and whenever we travel on Turtle Island. Well, at this point in time, we would like to welcome former board members in attendance today, which is Member Dave Barrick, Member Al Caslin, and Vaughn Stewart. As part of today's agenda, the board will be making a presentation to formally acknowledge their contribution to the board during their tenures of members of the Niagara Regional Police Service Board. Also this morning, I would like to welcome our newest board member, David Eek. Dave, could you stand, please? Dave has been appointed by the province for a 3-year term. He is a lifelong resident of the Niagara region and brings over 40 years of public and private sector experience. Dave has an extensive record in community service, and his background and experience will certainly strengthen and complement our board as we face challenges in our police environment. Dave fills a position previously held by Vaughn Stewart, whose term expired on May 31st. Dave will be sworn in within the next week or so, and he will then be able to officially assume his seat at the board table and participate in all board business. On behalf of my colleagues on the board, we welcome your appointment and look forward to your participation and contribution to this board. The next item is the number 1 district groundbreaking ceremony. This took place on June the 4th. The Niagara Regional Police Service Board, the Niagara Regional Police Service, and the Niagara Region held a groundbreaking ceremony for Niagara Regional Police Service 1 district facility at 196 Welland Avenue at the corner of Niagara Street and North Street in St. Catharines. There's a couple of photos up on the screen there of some earth being tossed around there. The event was well attended by members of both region and municipal council, city officials, neighboring organizations, as well as past and present members of the board and service who had been involved with the Niagara Regional Police long-term facility plan over the past several years. It was a very successful day, and I would like to thank the combined efforts put forward by the region and police staff for organizing this event. Brian, your group, thank you. Since the groundbreaking ceremony, the project has continued to progress steadily. You can see from just those photos, and that's the only thing we put up today. As my role as chair of the board's accommodation committee, I regularly attend the joint meeting at the region and the police facility steering committee meetings. These meetings provide fulsome discussion on one district project, and the next meeting is scheduled for July 23rd. I also visit the site on a weekly basis, and I do send out an update to members of the service and the board. It's basically a set of photographs of what's happening. On June 20th, the Niagara Regional Police Service hosted a canine graduation ceremony for 6 service dogs and their handlers. The Niagara Regional Police welcomed 2 new members to our canine unit, Constable Chris Van Ryle and police dog Jax, and Constable Kyle Weglin and police dog Maverick. They were also joined by 4 other police service dogs and their handlers from Niagara Parks Police, Buffalo Police Department, and the Genesee County Sheriff's Office in New York State. The event was very well attended by representatives from each police service as well as their families and graduating officers. There was a lot of people at that meeting, which was good. Good turnout of family members in that. Board members D'Angela Gibson and myself attended the event. And to point out, the next Police Services Board meeting is on July the 11th at 8:30 in the morning at the community room here in headquarters. That will be our last meeting before we take our summer break, and then we will resume back in September. Next board meeting is July 25th. The next committee meetings are on July 11th in this room. So that's the only information I have to report at this. Chief?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Just with regards to a drug and gun seizure, I just want to update the board on that. On June 10th of this year, members of our Niagara Falls Street Crime Unit entered into a drug investigation involving a 41-year-old male from Niagara Falls. Male was suspected of trafficking illicit drugs from his vehicle and residence. Observations were made and the male was arrested at a traffic stop for drug trafficking offenses. A Controlled Drugs and Substances Act search warrant was executed at the male's residence where firearms were also located. 3 shotguns and a handgun were found. One of the firearms had been sawed down to reduce the length and serial number had been removed. Ammunition for the firearms were also found readily accessible. Male has been charged with numerous firearm offenses, trafficking offenses as it pertains to cocaine and oxycodone and possessions of proceeds of crime in the amount of nearly $3,000. Investigation was great work by all officers involved and serves as a reminder of the dangers faced by our members and citizens alike from firearms possessed by those involved in criminal activity. And it's an example of how our officers will continue to work diligently to make our communities safer for all. On Tuesday, June the 18th, members from our Niagara Regional Police Service, Niagara Parks Police, and the Canadian Border Services Agency marched onto the Rainbow Bridge with our Canadian Special Olympic athletes for the annual Badges on the Border event. I'll send you these notes, Deb. I didn't include this one in the original draft. Special Olympian and gold medal winner Tesh Trojan carried the Special Olympics Flame of Hope on behalf of the Canadian contingent before meeting up with our American law enforcement brothers and sisters in the middle of the bridge to support Special Olympics in Canada and the United States. A small ceremony took place on the bridge with our Canadian and American Special Olympic athletes before lighting the Special Olympics cauldron in unison. A truly inspiring event that celebrated that Special Olympics has no borders and emphasized that law enforcement in Canada and the U.S. are united together in our support of these tremendous athletes. I was going to mention the K-9 unit, and really the graduation. Hats off to Sergeant Scott Johnstone for his efforts in leading this unit. Presently, our K-9 unit consists of 7 general patrol dogs and 1 dedicated solely for the detection of explosives. The unit's knowledge and expertise have been utilized internationally, and increasingly police agencies in the United States have begun to model their K-9 training programs after the Niagara Regional Police Service. Highly motivated, trained and disciplined police service dogs are an invaluable asset to police agencies, both large and small. Our graduating dogs are trained to detect and follow human scent, to be able to track fleeing suspects through all terrain in light or in darkness, engage fleeing and violent suspects, disengaged after a suspect has surrendered or when ordered to do so by their handler, and protect their respective handlers on cue or by command, and as well in evidence detection. And again, thanks to the board for attending and supporting our K-9 program. With regards to homicides thus far in 2019, during the reporting period, we did not incur any new homicides, which means that our year-to-date total of 3 remains the same. In previous years, we had 2018, we had 2 homicides. 2017, we had 3. 2016, we had 1. And 2015, we had 6 homicides. So that's our year-to-date totals for those. During the reporting period, there were no fatal or life-threatening motor vehicle collisions that took place in the month of May, which is a great trend, and we hope that continues going forward for the remainder of the year. Total number of fatal collisions that we have had year-to-date is 4. By comparison, in all of 2018, we had 15, and in 2017, we had 18. Again, trending very favorably. Some items in the news. Detectives from our 5-district criminal investigation branch have been actively investigating a number of break-and-enter complaints in the east end of Fort Erie since early May. Investigators were able to identify a male suspect and issue a warrant for his arrest. The accused had been eluding police for several days after multiple efforts to locate him. On Wednesday, May 29th, uniform members from 5 District responded to a break-and-enter in progress on Douglas Street in Fort Erie. Officers arrived at the scene quickly and were able to locate and arrest a male responsible with the assistance of our canine unit. He's been charged with multiple break-and-enter offenses, and 39-year-old male remains in custody for that. On Tuesday, June the 4th, members of the Niagara Regional Police Service Traffic Enforcement Unit, with the assistance of members from our Uniform Patrol and our auxiliary officers, conducted sobriety spot checks in the city of Welland and Thorold. Through the course of the evening and early morning hours, over 300 vehicles were stopped and drivers were questioned with regards to alcohol consumption and drug use prior to the operation of their motor vehicles. As a result, 11 drivers were asked to provide a sample of their breath for analysis. 1 driver was arrested for failing the roadside screening test. A second driver was issued a 3-day license suspension for having more than 50 milligrams but less than 100 milligrams of alcohol in their system. An additional 23 drivers were selected to provide breath samples under the mandatory screening law, and I'm pleased to advise that all 23 were fully compliant with the law. Further to the alcohol and drug-related incidents, we also issued 6 provincial offense notices for various Highway Traffic Act offenses. Since May of 2019, members of our Gun, Gangs, and Grow Unit and the Morality Unit have been investigating a male regarding his involvement in the suspected mobile sale of crack cocaine and powdered cocaine in the city of St. Catharines. Resultantly, on June 6th at approximately 5 a.m., members of our Emergency Task Unit executed a Controlled Drugs and Substances Act warrant at the St. Catharines residence. Upon entry into the residence, 2 individuals were arrested without incident. A search of the residence yielded a quantity of crack cocaine, powder cocaine, morphine tablets, Canadian currency, and a handgun with ammunition. 1 arrested was found to be bound by a firearms prohibition at the time of their arrest. In total, we seized a 9mm Smith & Wesson handgun with a magazine and ammunition, powdered cocaine, crack cocaine, morphine with a street value of approximately $6,000, as well as $1,500 in currency believed to be the proceeds of drug sales. Just wanted to advise the board with regards to a second arrest that's been made in connection with the continued investigation into an incident that occurred at Brock University on March 21st of this year, where we were called to the campus over multiple reports of a shooting that had occurred there. On June 9th, detectives with our 1 District Criminal Investigation Branch arrested and charged a 19-year-old male from Whitby with the alleged offenses of assault with a weapon and aggravated assault ×2. Detectives believe there are no outstanding suspects in this matter, and as another 20-year-old male had previously been arrested in April. So that concludes that investigation, and it's now before the courts. In January of 2019, the Niagara Regional Police Service Central Fraud Unit commenced an investigation into an alleged fraud and theft of construction equipment from a West Lincoln business known as the Havana Group Incorporated. As a result of a lengthy investigation on June 12th, the Niagara Regional Police Fraud Unit, with the assistance of Hamilton Police Major Fraud Branch and High Enforcement Action Team, arrested and charged a 46-year-old Ancaster man with numerous offenses, including theft over $5,000, uttering threats, and conspiracy to commit an indictable offense. Subsequently, while attending the bail hearing for the accused male, police located a second suspect who was sought in relation to this matter. As police attempted to effect an arrest, the male resisted and a brief struggle ensued. 58-year-old male from Cambridge was arrested and has also been charged with numerous offenses, including theft over $5,000, conspiracy to commit an indictable offense, and resist arrest. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. The next item of business this morning is recognition of our former board members. So at this point in time, I would like to ask for Dave Barrick, Al Caslin, and Vaughn Stewart to just momentarily stand for a few moments. I will comment, unfortunately, that member Terry Bonham was unable to join us as this morning, but he did meet with myself earlier this month, along with the chief, and we recognized his service at that time. Dave and Alan's appointments as members of the Police Service Board expired when their previous terms, in Regional Council. Terry Bonham's appointment expired on March 29th, and Vaughn's provincial appointment expired on May 31st. The board has invited our former members to this meeting to formally acknowledge the valuable insight that they have brought to the Police Service Board during their tenure. I know that they were all dedicated board members who committed an enormous amount of time and energy over the past several years to the many challenges of the board and the issues that we faced. These board members were knowledgeable, interested, and determined, and have all the various backgrounds and interests, and made them excellent board members. During their time on the board, I can recall some great and very animated discussions, but I can tell you that we have learned something from every one of them. And I'm sure that they have gained a lot of respect for the role of the board and the job our police service does in our community. On behalf of the board, it is my pleasure to present each of you with a commemorative plaque. So if you would join me over here to the side. So you're not actually off the hook yet. One of the other opportunities as former board members is you're more than welcome to come to the podium. And if you wish to make some comments about your term on the board, I would welcome that. Again, I'll go in alphabetical order before Dave. And you know where the button is.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair. So thanks for this morning and the recognition. It's greatly appreciated. It was a true honor and pleasure for me to be part of this board the last 4 years. I can say it was, I believe, a period of transition on multiple fronts, one going from the downtown St. Catharines headquarters to this building, a new command team as well during that period, dealing with collective bargaining issues. So to your point earlier, there was no shortage of conversation items, which is really important. I'm happy to see this new board, a lot of the members coming from many of the smaller communities in Niagara, and as well the member who used to be mayor of Niagara on the Lake joining soon. So that's a really important perspective that I'm happy that will remain on this board moving forward. So once again, it was an honor and pleasure, and I appreciate being here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Al, you're next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, the board. It's great to be recognized today. I had a fabulous term when I was on the board. As been said before, we went through an enormous amount of change, and I can safely say that I think we came out the other side for the better. So I'm pleased with what we got accomplished. I'm pleased with the discussion, the lively discussion that took place during that time, the back and forth. And the one thing that was really the cherry on top, shall we say, of my term was the Cops for Cancer ride. That was something that was brand new for Niagara, where we got to ride for raising the awareness of cancer in youth in Niagara. And thanks to Bill Forty for initiating that, bringing that from the West Coast. And that was 400 kilometers over 4 days. So 100 kilometers a day by 27 dedicated individuals riding around the Niagara Peninsula to raise the awareness. And I think we hit 26 schools. We stopped at various locations for celebrations. And of course, I have to recognize Brett Flynn, and also Brian was there for part of the ride. So to those that participated in that ride, I think we did something that was groundbreaking for Niagara. I hope it continues. And as far as my term on the board, all the best to the new board that's here now. I know that you're going to be great. I think that the stage is set, and I think it's yours to continue. Get the St. Catharines detachment built. That's been a long time in the making, and I think it needs to happen. So thank you again for the recognition today.
Vaughn?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to make a few remarks. 10 years ago, I went on the Public Appointments Secretariat's website to put my name forward to sit on the Police Services Board. A few months later, I received a call from my local MPP, and he said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Well, a few months passed, an interview to see if I understood the role of a board member, background checks, reference checks, and I was appointed. A number of my friends congratulated me. An equal number said, "Are you crazy?" On December the 2nd of 2009, my journey as a Police Service Board member commenced, and that journey went on until May 31st, 2019. 9.5 years of never missing a board meeting and only missing one committee day, but I had a new granddaughter to visit in Australia that I had to miss that day for. So first I'd like to thank Deb and Don, who work in the office, for all the help all those years. They do a fantastic job for the board, in the board office and make things run smoothly. I'd like to give some additional thanks to Deb Reed for encouraging me to be involved in the zone, provincial, and national levels of police governance, introducing me to many people in Ontario and Canada who do what we do as Police Service Board members, helped me to gain a very broad perspective on this position. National summits on economics, policing, and my 8 years as board member and treasurer of Ontario Association of Police Services Boards. None of this would have happened without you getting me started down the path, so thanks, Deb. During my time on the board, I worked with 3 different chiefs of police. It was Chief Southall who expanded the School Resource Officer Program. As a former educator, I know this program will pay long-term dividends to Niagara by helping more of our youth stay on the right path. It was Chief McGuire who launched the Mobile Crisis Rapid Response Team. I hope this program can expand since mental health issues present themselves to police all too often, and this program helps deal with some of our most vulnerable citizens in a better way. Chief McCullough, he's brought some needed organizational change, but there's more years to go before I could choose a highlight for you, so I'll keep watching. My journey has allowed me to meet a number of great people in the service, both sworn and civilian. We are fortunate in Niagara to have these people working on our behalf for a safe community. I hope the community appreciates that the 2 or 3 bad apples they may read about in the press are really only 2 or 3 out of 1,000 great people. Watching 9 tug-of-war events, many charity events, attending numerous Police Week activities throughout the region each year has allowed me to meet and support these members. Day in and day out, they do a great job in keeping a safer community for us. I'm thankful to have served in the role on behalf of my community, and I enjoyed the role very much. It was most rewarding to contribute to our community in this way. I'm happy to have played this role and will look back with great satisfaction on my time as a board member of the Niagara Regional Police Service Board. I'm glad I did it, and to half my friends, I don't think I was crazy. Thank you.
At this point in time, I would ask the chief if he has any comments that he would like to make on behalf of the service for our former 3 board members.
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Chair. The role of a board member is certainly, today has never been more difficult and more challenging. To have to quickly get up to speed on all of the various legislative requirements, to understand all of the various issues that are impacting police resources, and to make informed decisions on how the police service can address those variety of issues that are impacting our communities. I just want to thank all of the board members for the time that they've dedicated to the Police Services Board on behalf of their community. We thank them for working collaboratively with the command team and our executive leadership team to advance the needs of the service and, more importantly, to advance the needs of our community. So on behalf of the service, we wish Mr. David Barrick, Mr. Vaughn Stewart, Mr. Terry Bonham, and Mr. Alan Caslin all the best in all of their future endeavors, and once again thank them for their time and dedication.
Thank you very much. Next item is number 126, and that is Niagara Victim Services. We're going to introduce today our working facilities dog, Axel.
Can I just get a motion to approve the
Oh, sorry. One thing I forgot. We need a mover and seconder for the presentation of the awards. Moved by Member DeAngelis, seconded by Member McKendrick. All in favor? Thank you. Please come forward.
Good morning. So thank you very much for this opportunity to come share with you about our new program with Victim Services and Axel, who's my new partner, which has been an amazing experience. What is a facility dog? Because that's kind of a newer term for people, and it is a working dog. There's 45 dogs in Canada. The first one being in Delta, BC about 11 years ago, and I'll show you more about that. And they are dogs that are from an accredited or working or assistance organization. So he is given to us from Autism Dog Services, and they are internationally accredited. And they will continue to own him until he retires, and I can adopt him at that point if all goes well. He can work about 8 to 10 years. So there are lots in the U.S., that's where it more started, and they're working in all different facilities, hospitals, courthouses, police stations, victim services. So they're very, it's becoming more popular. So we looked at this about, I think I started the process about 6 years ago, I would say, in my dreams for the future. And I was visiting, or I went to a training in Baltimore with the Critical Incident Stress Foundation, and there were the state trooper from Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook shooting was there, and talking about how the following week after the shooting, the officers were on scene and doing the investigation, and the only time he would see them relax or smile was when the dogs, the facility dogs came on scene just to give them a break, and they would smile and drop their shoulders. And it just inspired me to think that this would be something so amazing for Niagara. So our purpose, our statement of purpose, Victim Services Niagara believes every victim has the right to heal from a crime or tragic circumstance, and our programs create opportunity, foster hope, and build safer and healthier communities. I see Axel as being part of that and adding to that so much in enhanced services. So there is scientific proof that the presence of a dog reduces stress in humans. It has a mental calming effects. It's by properly trained and so to not overwhelm people. Petting an animal produces short-term decreases in blood pressure and heart rate. Even the presence of the dog has shown to give these results. There's also well-documented short-term positive effects on psychological health, positive effects on social communication and ability to make social contacts, reduction in feelings of loneliness and isolation, and improvements in depression and self-esteem. So it's quite remarkable what these dogs can do. So in September, just before I got him, I had the opportunity to go to the Courthouse Dogs Conference in Seattle, where it was an amazing opportunity to collaborate with people from all over the world. Actually, there was Paris, France was there with these types of dogs. And I learned a lot of things like best practices, and just to be able to have those connections, which was really important. I was also able to attend a 2-day training on mass casualty assistance. So if there's, so they had the collaborative US and Canada dogs handlers talking about Vegas, where they had collaborated and they were in Vegas to assist after the shooting. And that was a great opportunity to have that training with them, and also to be able to still have that collaboration with them. Justice Facility Dogs was created this past year. Like the facility dogs have, like I said, been 11 years, but we wanted to have an actual group that we collaborate with, and so Justice Facility Dogs Canada has been created, and it's just been an amazing opportunity. So that's Caber up at the top right. He was the first dog and still is working, actually 11 years later, which is great. The bottom picture is Axel and Journey. Journey is Halton Victim Services dog. And as you can see, Ottawa has West, Toronto obviously has Jersey and Iggy, London has Merrill, and there's more too. Those are just the ones that I'm more collaborative with. So what is Axel, his resume? We meet and greet the clients in the office. We provide support during office appointments, so safety planning. Criminal injuries compensation applications can be very difficult for people, and he's added a great addition to that to be able to have a calming effect while they're giving their talk or their statements. He has done one death notification. It has to be safe for him to do so, so that's a big check there. He has provided support during forensic interviews. Just a really neat, he's done several, but a neat one was a young man in his early teens who had to answer some pretty tough questions. Axel laid on the couch beside him with his head on his lap. The young man would answer the questions and he would pet the dog. Answer the questions, pet the dog. Answer the question, and it was just a really neat calming effect for him, and he was able to do that. Being an ambassador for victim services. Everywhere I go, people ask about him, which is really good to get our name out there and so people understand that we're there for them. And he has been to critical incident stress meetings and groupings, which has been really powerful to watch. In February, he was able to assist a young woman, sexual assault victim, through the court process. He was the first dog on Niagara to be in the courtroom. He laid in the witness box at her feet. She had her shoes off and her feet on his body just to give that warmth. She had a very long history of trauma, so she did tend to dissociate when she was under stress. She did not dissociate and was able to give her best testimony, and there was a conviction in the end, which was really exciting. Community information sessions are something that Victim Services offers to organizations and people, so it'd be kind of like a briefing for after, let's say, a suicide at a workplace or something like that, and he is really helpful in those situations. And then he is able to attend a scene at a mass casualty incident, if it's safe for him, obviously. Some quotes from victims. Axel is such enormous help to me today. At first sight, I forgot all about why I was there. During our conversation, Axel calmed my anxiety. As soon as he laid his head on my lap and fell asleep, I felt no pressure, panic, or the thought of being rushed. He made my day. I'd love to have him at any and all of my appointments. Bless your heart, Axel. You are truly inspiring. Axel really helped me out today. He's such a well-mannered, beautiful dog. I see the difference when I just even walk through the hall towards getting the clients, and you can see their shoulders are a little tight, and then they see him and it just kind of drops, and it's a really amazing opportunity to see that happen. I feel very honored. Just some pictures here of some of our opportunities. The top right is the Sexual Assault Domestic Violence Treatment Center at the hospital. He is able to attend there if there's a call for him. That's kind of a picture to the left of him. It's not a great picture, but him, how he would lay on somebody's lap on the couch. The bottom left is the actual court. When he was at court prep there, and then those are some of my volunteers who absolutely love him. Some children, he's so good with the kids that come in here, just lays calmly with them. They absolutely adore him. So if a mom comes in, who's just experienced a domestic violence, but she has to bring her child, just gives that calm effect. The mom feels comforted too that her child is having a sweet moment with the dog, and just a beautiful experience. The police, a huge response, positive response with the police. I remember walking down the hall the one time, and an officer was on his cell phone, and he just said, "Oh, I gotta go. The dog's here. I gotta pet the dog." So, get off the phone and pet the dog. I think it just provides a normalization in the hallways, and just a bright, hopeful experience, and they just love them. The comm unit, they say, "Can you come every day? Can you come every day?" So they're obviously very impacted by him when we go up there. And if we know that there's been a difficult situation, we try and head up there either that day or the next day just to give them a little bit of a cheer up. These are some of the events and community things that we've done. The first one is the meeting professionals against human trafficking. So it was a training that I helped with for hotel event planners. And then we were at the emergency preparedness at the top there. That's people coming over to say hi. And then the Child Grief Network, or the conference that we put on, he was helpful there with greeting the children that came in. And then we had the Niagara Ice Dogs teddy bear toss, which was always fun and a neat way for him to get out there. And that's basically it in a nutshell. And so you'll see him walking in the hallways there, and that's how he looks kind of when he's in a working position. And are there any questions or?
Board members, any questions? Chief, any comments from your side?
Yes, thanks very much, Mr. Chair. For over 20 years, we've enjoyed an incredible relationship with Victim Services Niagara. They provide both emotional and practical assistance for victims of crime and tragic circumstance anywhere here in the Niagara region. And they've assisted thousands of victims of crime and victims of tragic circumstance. And this addition to the victim services lineup is just another mechanism for them to reach out to our members in the community who are impacted by these tragic events. And if it means being able to assist a victim of crime to be able to be more at ease and tell their story in court, or whatever, in whatever fashion that Axel can assist a victim of crime or tragic circumstances, we're certainly very welcome to that, and we thank Pearl for her dedication to this. I know it's been her dream. I was on the board for Victim Services Niagara for 7 years, and for me, it's nice to see this was something that was discussed at the board table as sort of, this is where we would like to get to, and now it's come full circle, and we're really pleased for Pearl, and more importantly, pleased for Victim Services Niagara and our community. So thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank Axel for coming today. A mover and seconder for the presentation, moved by Member Gibson, seconded by Member Steele. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. So the next items on the agenda is the consent components, items number 127 to 134. We're going to have a mover and seconder to put that block on the floor. Moved by Member Gale, seconded by Member McKendrick. Discussions on these items, please. Member DeAngelo.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just let me know what number it is.
Yeah, it's 133, the Underwater Search and Recovery Unit. Just a quick question. There's a chart on the second page, or actually, sorry, on the fourth page, and it has a listing of how many recoveries, and at the bottom it talks about recoveries and revenue. Just a question on that. How would the revenue be generated on that? Is that just...
I'll ask the chief to comment on that, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the recoveries are often impacted by insurance claims. So they may be recovering a stolen vehicle, and so there's revenue from the insurance company that will be recovered.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one other point on that. I know the St. Lawrence Seaway puts out a video or a DVD regarding the dangers waterways of Niagara. Is that something that the school resource officer uses at any point in time, or is that something you work with the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Company? Because I know there's a lot of dangerous areas in terms of waterways with the canals dispersing water or intaking water. So that's an area that's probably problematic, and sometimes body recovery. I'm just wondering if that's something that again, through the chief, or through the chair to the chief, if the school resource officers takes advantage of working with the Seaway on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not certain the school resource officers necessarily do, but that's something that we could certainly work with the Seaway and collaborate. You're quite right. I mean, we have a lot of dangerous waterways, a lot of dangerous terrain in general within the region. So it's something that we can certainly work towards doing better. Thanks.
Anything else? Any other items? Okay. Other board members? Member Kendrick?
Report number 127 regarding, conduct complaints or administration of the public complaint system. On page 4 in Q1 2009, complainants requested. There's actually a number missing, so there isn't a comparison. I'm wondering if we can get that information forwarded to us so that we have a comparison.
We're working on getting that for you right now. I hope to have it for you by the end of the meeting if it's possible. Okay.
Any other items? No. I just have one myself. Just wanted to highlight item in report number 131, because we just recently had a canine graduation ceremony recently. The numbers here, especially for 2018, we had 103 calls for service and there were 76 arrests. Again, it shows very well the benefits from our police service dogs. So I think, again, that's a good program. So I just wanted to highlight what I would consider to be a success story for the service with those numbers.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, we had 1,218 calls for service involving canine. 103 is regarding successful tracks by the canine unit.
Thank you.
Okay, just to clarify, thanks.
Anything else? Okay, so we have a mover and seconder already. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Next item is number 135. That's the budget timeframes. The board approves the timeframes for the completion of the budgets. I'll turn that to the chief or whoever he wishes to speak on the item.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the report, I think, is self-explanatory, and it just outlines the request by the region with regards and outlines their specific timelines for both our operating and capital budgets, and the attached schedules, or Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, I think quite nicely lay out the timelines that we will be following in accordance with the region's timelines.
Thank you. Any comments by board members? Mover and seconder, please. Member Gibson, Member DeAngelo, all in favor? Thank you. Item 136, also budget, operating budget planning. Mover and seconder to put this on the floor, please. Member Gibson, Member Steele. I'll turn that item back to the chief for any comments from finance.
I'll start off, and if it's necessary, Lisa DiDonato de Cellis can add some additional information. But as you recall from our 2019 operating budget, there was a portion of our budget that we agreed to reduce because we were not going to be hiring those positions as of January the 1st. So a quarter of their salaries was reduced from our budget, recognizing, of course, that in 2020 there would be, it wouldn't be 3/4 of a year's salary that we would have to pay, that it would be the entire year's salary for those positions. So what this report is doing is just asking that $706,196 be included in our 2020 budget, so that that value, the full value, is restated in our operating budget.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? Member Gale?
Yeah, just a caution on this. I agree with the motion and that, but about the MPI and CPI, that was a report that was received by the region at the last meeting. It was not approved, and there's a lot of questions on this, especially with the 3% across the board increases to people on that. So it's not a foregone conclusion that we're going to MPI, because I know of other cities in the province that I was told by the press that don't approve of this. And I understand, I might be wrong, but Waterloo University or University of Waterloo analyzed it and said, you know, be caution on this. So it was just to be received. It's not a foregone conclusion on this. So.
Yeah, I remember reading that there was a discussion at regional council on the difference between these two, but I didn't realize where that had actually landed.
Well, one thing that a citizen called me about was that here we are as regional councillors talking about increases of 2% or whatever. Do you know that this report means 3% for over 3,000 workers at the region? And you guys aren't spending the right time analyzing this report? And that caused a lot of concern, as well as is it the right way to go? So, thanks.
Thank you. So we have a mover and seconder already. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Item 137. Is basically the RIDE grant application. Mover and seconder, please. Member Gibson, seconded by Member McKendrick. Any discussion by board members? Chief, this is fairly straightforward. Any comments from your side?
Nothing further to add than it's the standard request for RIDE grant money.
Thank you. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Dealt with. Number 138 is the TELUS contract award for mobile and smartphones. A mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Member Steele, seconded by Member Gibson. Any discussion from the service on this? Again, it's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, just a lot of work has gone into this to try and leverage the number of mobile devices that we have, and to be able to, again, leverage the best competitive pricing that we can come up with. And I think what you have before you is just that. It's leveraged the numbers, and we're able to get significant savings as a result of that.
It seems that one of the biggest issues was the roaming fees that we face living along the border here, where cell phones will hop over to the U.S. side. And it would appear that the other two vendors were rather reluctant into waiving those fees. So I'm assuming that TELUS, from what I read here, is going to provide us a much better adjudication of those matters. Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I think I read in here that the current phones are going to be basically on a rust-out type phase, and then once the new ones come in. Do you know what the time period for that's going to be?
Through Mr. Chair, I'll have Mr. Akram School, our IT director, provide that answer.
Good morning to you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we do have some devices right now, are what we call the older generation devices. We have about 100 right now that have no penalty. So part of the discussion of how it tell us is to do the migration, is they will assist us in actually carrying those over into the plan immediately, because we do not have to pay a penalty. So we have about 100 that effectively can be replaced. Some of the other devices are still newer, so we're just kind of waiting for that to transition, so we do not face any contract penalties. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Member Gale.
Yeah, in a broad stroke, this falls under this, but it's not specific to this motion. But through you, Chief, to Akram, but whoever you think should answer this. I get concerned when I read in the paper about the hijacking of some of the websites, or I don't know what the word is, Akram, of these guys that go in and are charging the cities a ransom for getting back their computers. And I guess my question is going to be, do we have coverage for that? And you're going to say, yes, we do. But do we actually have good enough coverage from a police standpoint on it to get away from that happening? Because it's happening to big cities that you would think that their councillors ask the same question as I am, and they said, yes, we do.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and, those are the common identity fraud, where links could come in on the phone. Within our systems, we do have next-generation firewalls. We do have protections in places. We also have done a security assessment where we could enhance that. We feel we are pretty good shape because we do have threat assessments on those type of things. And we continue to educate our members and just to be cautious and be aware of what's out there. So to the best of our ability, we're taking every measure to try to protect our networks. Those devices are encrypted and to ensure that they meet the compliance with RCMP and so forth. So we do have additional layers of protection within our internal environment and our mobile environment. And we continue to enhance that.
Okay, and further on this, Chair, when I was in FCM in Quebec, I had a talk with some councillors out there about, and since then I've had talks here, about people opening up emails at different fronts. At the region now, every time we get an email from outside, we know that it says this message originated from outside the Niagara region. We're supposed to pay attention to that don't automatically go in the attachment. In one of the places in the Niagara region I know that's run by the government sent emails to senior staff, and I don't know how many were senior staff, I'll estimate 30 or 40 senior staff, just to test. And it was a bogus email with a bogus attachment, and 3/4 of them opened it. And so that spurred on a conversation in Quebec. I talked to other people out there, and they said, yes, we try this every now and then, especially with our senior staff, and that the worst ones are senior staff. And I'm not blaming us. I'm just saying the example given to me, saying, and it was from whatever, they didn't look at the attachment. And I said, well, I always look at the email address that it comes from, and then I know. And they said, no, they can come up with corrupt that really makes it look like it's coming from the chief or coming from us to you in that. So do you ever try that? And I'm going to suggest you try that and wrap us for it if we open it up as board members or whatever. Have you ever tried stuff like this or looked at this stuff? And are you hearing the same thing as me, especially about attachments that corrupt the whole system if one person opens it?
Through the chair, thank you, Member Gale. It's an excellent point, an excellent question. And I have to say that through Akram's leadership, our service has been very progressive in taking efforts to proactively communicate with our staff about these risks, and we have done random testing. So we are very alive to this issue, and we concur completely with your assessment.
Okay, and I know this chair should go to IT committee, of which you're the chair of, but I bring it up now because we don't meet that much on IT, but I'd like to hear that this test is being done around here, as well as I'm going to suggest at the region too, just to see if we are aware. I understand what you're saying, Deputy Chief, but it doesn't hurt for us to test each other and test me, test the chief, test the chair, test everybody, and just, do we slip or do we look at the attachment before we open it up that could kill us all?
Yes, thanks. In addition to the testing, we've also added a banner to every email that comes into our service from outside the service so that our entire membership is aware of those very risks that you reference.
Any other comments on this item? Okay, we have a mover and seconder. We do, right? Yes. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Item number 139, special fund request, mover and seconder, please. Member Gibson, seconded by Member Steele. This is a $1,500 donation of a special fund for participation in Niagara Police Service members during the Ride to Remember for 2019. Mover and so we have that. I will actually be marching in this year's parade in Ottawa. I'm grateful for that opportunity. Any other comments from board members on this? Show of hands in favor. We have one new item. It's item number 140. This is the appointment to confirm the appointment of the Order in Council of Mr. David Eek. I need a mover and seconder, please, to receive this information. Member Gale, Member DeAngela. Unless there's any comments, which there probably isn't. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Welcome aboard, David. That concludes the confidential component. Oh, sorry, new business, please. Member Gale.
I see he's in the audience. May I have an update just on our vulnerable sector checks and that, how it's coming for that? If I'm not out of line asking for that. If not, I'll wait till the next meeting, but is that possible?
That's not a problem. Thank you. Gary can come forward.
Morning, everyone. Mr. Chair, through you. Just as an update, I can advise that unfortunately we still experience a backlog. We're looking at a 6-week backlog today. We are accommodating a lot of agencies when they contact us to try to get them through faster. Honestly, it's just a staffing issue. We've gone through 10 members in this unit in the last couple months. We've been going through them pretty quick, and it's just a training issue, trying to get everybody up and running. So that's the reason for the backlog.
I'm just curious, gone through, 10 people hired, 10 people quit?
We currently are in a bumping position. So through SOIs, we're seeing a lot of SOIs filling positions because they can't be posted full-time or filled. So through SOIs and maternity leaves, that's what's pretty much affecting my unit.
So when is, through you, Chair, when is the next rush we have? We have a rush when people get out of university, are going for jobs and that. When is the next rush that we'll start getting a lot of complaints if it's at?
Late July, early August.
And, I'm sorry? Yeah, so,
That's right.
so game plan so that we can not get as many calls.
I think you were advised by the chief at the last meeting. We're working with a company to automate our entire process. We're hoping that's going to help. The bumping should be done by August as well. So once we get the position filled and we get full-time members back in, that's going to help, as well as the Gambit solution is going to automate it. So we're hoping that's going to happen at the same time.
So just a question on the automated component. I remember from your conversation a month ago, I sort of thought that we'd be pretty close to trying to implement that like now. Is that, have you run into issues?
We're still working with the RCMP. We have to update what is called the NASCAR. So we're working in 3 phases with Gambit. Phase 1 is going to be helping them at their end. Phase 2, until we can get the process automated and the kiosks accredited by the RCMP, that's going to hold up the process. But again, we anticipate August to get that up and running.
Okay, thank you. I know in the last 30 days, I've received an email regarding trying to get some people a background check for a long-term care facility, I think it was. I know we don't try to prioritize, but I think it's important to try to get some of the applications through if we're dealing in some of the more vulnerable sector-type employments such as that. Healthcare and that is a vital component of the region and us nationally. So, Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I've received quite a bit of correspondence from fellow councillors at the regional level asking what the status is. Perhaps we could send a weekly or every 2-week email to the clerk at the regional council on what the time delay is and just keep them informed of it, and then that way they can put it out to the councillors who are being reached by their people. So
That's a good idea. Yeah, I wish I had thought of that. We do update our website all the time, making sure the public and all the agencies we deal with are aware, but we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah, I think communications is important in this area, in this juncture. People understand what the timing is. They know they need to get their applications in a month and a half in advance. So.
And I can advise that we are accommodating those agencies as well. We understand everybody's in a hiring crunch, so we do try to prioritize those ones now.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Member D'Angelo.
Just a question to you, Mr. Chair. In terms of making sure we upgrade the software and getting the staffing in place, what is the ultimate goal of a realistic number that we're trying to target? It's 6 weeks right now. Is it a 2-week process? Is that what ultimately the goal is once we have all these efficiencies in place?
Yes, that is the plan. What we were doing for a while was doing them in real time while people were waiting at the counter, or 2 weeks at the outside, and that's pretty consistent with the police services in the province. Some have 2-week timelines. It's 2 weeks for employment, 30 days for volunteer. We've looked at 2 weeks right across the board. We were maintaining that for quite some time until we got into this HR aspect.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to adjourn now for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we will move into the confidential component. Chief.
Sorry if I have that update for Member McKendrick. So with respect to our Q1 2019 request of the OIPRD to review the inspector's decision, it is, the number is 2 in the same quarter in 2018. Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, so we'll adjourn for 15 or 20 minutes, and then we will move into the confidential segment. Thank you.